the editor and well-known AIDS activist, Sean Strub. Give it up!
Thanks. I'm actually not the editor of Poz any longer, but I'm with the global network of people with HIV and AIDS and the Positive Justice Project. We all know that a continuing disregard and outright trampling of the human rights of people with HIV and men who have sex with men and people who use drugs and sex workers and women and refugees and immigrants, that's what drives this epidemic. And we will not defeat AIDS until we recognize and address this fact. This is no more clearly evident than in the fact that HIV-related stigma today, 30 years into the epidemic, is increasing. It is not decreasing. In 1983, the Revolutionary Denver Principles Manifesto began with a defiant statement that reverberated powerfully throughout the intervening plague years. We condemned attempts to label us as victims, a term that implies defeat. And we are only occasionally patients, a term that implies passivity, helplessness, and dependence upon the care of others. We are people with AIDS. What those early activists did not articulate, and probably could not have imagined, was that the label we would need to fight against 3 decades later is criminal. Sadly, the United States is a global leader in HIV criminalization, exporting intolerance, ignorance, and legal retribution around the world. Criminalization creates a viral underclass in the law, which treats people with HIV differently for behaviors that for people who do not have HIV are unremarkable. In Texas, right now, as we are here in the hot sun, seeking treatment access for people around the world, there's a man in Texas serving 35 years in jail for spitting at a cop. There's a woman in Georgia who got 8 years for failing to disclose her status to a partner who did not acquire HIV, despite the fact that there were 2 witnesses to her disclosure, despite the fact that her HIV status was on the front page of her hometown newspaper. In Iowa, a young man was sentenced to 25 years in jail for failing to disclose to a partner. He used a condom. He had an undetectable viral load. 25 years in jail. I'm not talking about ancient history. I'm talking about a year and a half ago. There are hundreds of these cases, and every person here should be concerned about them. And it continues to get worse. 2 weeks ago, the legislature in Nebraska passed a bill that makes it a felony for people with HIV to sneeze or vomit in the direction of a law enforcement officer.
Wow. Right.
There is no more extreme manifestation of stigma than when government incorporates discrimination into the law, like Jim Crow laws or apartheid or HIV criminalization. These laws are driven by political and public policy leadership abetted by the media that increasingly, insultingly, and irrationally defines people with HIV principally as viral vectors, as potential infectors. As viral vectors or potential infectors, as a dangerous population, a threat to society that must be regulated and controlled. I will be just a second. Defining those of us with HIV as a threat to society and manipulating or coercing us rather than empowering us to access health care and make well-informed treatment decisions for ourselves is a dangerous threat to our rights. It fuels the epidemic, further disenfranchises those most at risk, erodes trust in the healthcare system, makes those at risk less likely to get tested, and those who need or want it less likely to access treatment. We must be vigilant against a creeping criminalization of our existence, be vigilant against those who will sacrifice our human rights at the altar of a perceived public good, and be vigilant against the arrogance of the well that operates from an unstated but clear belief that we, those of us living with HIV, are less than, are inferior beings with inferior rights to their arrogant supremacy.